Okay, you are listening to Dogs Run Free. My name is Michael Doherty, and today I am excited to be speaking with Richard T. Bear, singer, songwriter, keyboardist. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I appreciate it. Now, you released a new album a few months ago, Way of the World.
Yes.
I want to talk about that.
Yep.
I want to talk about some of your early releases, but if you don't mind, I'd love to start by going farther back to an anecdote that you told me about before your show on Friday, about the moment where you decided, yeah, I want to pursue music.
Okay. Well, I was working at Manny's Music in New York City on West 48th Street, which was the big retail music store. And all the bands used to come into the city that would play the Fillmore East or the Garden or the Felt Forum or the Palladium, and they would all come by, the store. A lot of the roadies would, at least, and pick up, gear that they needed. Being on the road, broken strings, needed new cables, this, that, and the other thing. Wanted to get an amp, whatever. And a bunch of roadies came in, and they were pretty hippie looking, and it turns out that they were the roadies for the Dead. And they said, we're having a jam tonight. They saw me playing a keyboard in there, and they said, hey, you're young and you look like you really like music. Come on down here. We're trying to fill the house, actually, is what we're trying to do. And so, we want you to come down there. So I go down there with my pass, and the guy sees me, and he says, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you a backstage pass as well. So I get a backstage pass. I go backstage, and first time I've ever been backstage passed at anything. And I'm like, about to shit myself. I'm having such a moment. And I'm standing on the corner of the stage, and I watched for a good half an hour, 45 minutes at that spot, And a bunch of other people come up on stage. Hot Tuna and Traffic was there, and it was a big jam night. And I'm just watching this amazing thing unfold before me in this great big jam session, and all of a sudden I get beckoned by Jerry Garcia. And I come out and I sit down at a Wurlitzer and I start playing. Now, to this day, I don't know what key I played in. I don't know whether I was right, wrong, or indifferent, but I was playing at the Fillmore East with the Dead. And it blew my mind. And from that moment on, I looked around and I just said, I want to do this the rest of my life. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
I did a little poking around, and my best guess is that show was November 16th, 1970. Does that sound plausible?
That sounds very plausible.
Do you recall how long did you sit in for, like, part of a song, part of a jam?
I have no idea to this day. I just know that they said they were doing the Anderson Theater across the street from the Fillmore East the next night.
Okay.
And I was invited to go by there. Pigpen was not around. I think he was sick or not available.
Yeah, during that time there were.
Yeah.
Well, if there are any fellow Deadheads listening who have an idea of when this show was, please feel free to leave a comment, or if you have any photos.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Please either send them to me or leave them as a comment. Now, in the time between that incredible moment and the release of your first record, right, Red Hot and Blue, in 1978,
right,
you played with some other pretty incredible folks, including Richie Havens.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I met Richie at an open mic night. He saw me playing, and Odetta had kind of talked me up to him, and he was a really sweet man. He reminded me of the Black Moses, is what he reminded me of, because he wore long robes, had a staff, long chains, beads, and everything. And he had such a aura about him that was so warm and so nurturing. And he said to me, he said, I love the way you play. How about playing on my record? I went, what? He says, yeah, I'm recording right now. And he gave me the address, and he said, come on down, come down tomorrow night and come and, record with us. So I got down there, And I looked around, and it was amazing. I could grab the record off the shelf here and show it to you if you want to stop for a second.
Why don't we do that after?
We'll do it after.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'd love to see it.
But yeah, I looked around the room, and the best of the best of the best session players were on the date, and I was really the only vanilla fella in the room. Bernard Purdy, Chuck Rainey, all those cats. I mean, just amazing, amazing musicians. And here I was, this young kid, playing with them. And the engineer, who I found out later on was Al Schmidt, who is a great and legendary producer and engineer, just said, "Hey, just take it easy. This is, you know what to do. Have fun. Go have fun. Just play along. Have a good time." And I played on three tracks, and then Richie invited me to play some festivals with him in the band. So I had a really good time, and I was friends with him for years. Yeah, he was a great guy. Great guy.
You seem to have a knack from the very beginning of your career all the way to the present of drawing some of the most talented and accomplished musicians into your orbit. On your first record, Red Hot and Blue in '78, they're fantastic players. One person that stood out for me, just from my childhood and everything, is Billy Squier. Played acoustic guitar on that album.
Yep.
And then this is a couple of years before he had even put out his first solo album, which
Right.
then you played keyboards on.
Right.
So I'm curious how.
I met Billy through somebody called Sean Delaney. And Sean Delaney was the artistic producer and creative director of Bill Aucoin Management. And Bill Aucoin managed Kiss. And he also had a band called Piper, which was Billy Squier's band. And they put him out on the road with another band called the Babies and John Waite. And so I was on that tour, and became friends with Billy, and we hung out quite a lot together. And he was a really good rocker. I mean, he really knew rock and roll. And I loved hanging with him, and I got a record deal, and he before he got his, and he wanted to play on it, and I wanted him to play on it, and we started writing together and started hanging out together. And I remember, well, I don't know if I should tell this story, but okay, I'll tell this story. I've got a lot of things. Since you're a Billy Squier fan, I'll tell this story. Okay, I get a call from his girlfriend, who was this kind of big rock DJ in Boston, and they were in New York, and they had moved to New York. He had lost, the Piper band broke up. He had no deal, no nothing, going on, and he got a little sauced one night, and very kind of depressed. And he told his girlfriend, I feel like jumping out the window. And she said, well, I'm going to call your friend to come over. And now it's in the middle of a December rainstorm in Manhattan. And I'm on the east side of town. They're on the west side. I've never been to their house before. And the only thing I had to get over there on was a motorcycle in the middle of this torrential downpour. So I drive my motorcycle. It's like 45 degrees. I'm freezing. I'm soaking wet. And, and I remember her saying he's going out on the ledge. And so I get to the building, and it's on West End Avenue. And I look up, and sure enough, he's right on the ledge of the second floor, which is only 10 feet off the pavement. And I said, if you don't kill yourself, I'm going to kill you.
So she neglected to give you that detail on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. I thought there were, it's up 8-10 stories or something. It was the second floor. It was like right there. He was like right there. I said, the worst thing you're going to do is get sprain an ankle or something, So, but he and I were really close, and we still are. We exchange Christmas cards all the time, and he came out, and when he was playing with, his name is on that thing hanging on the wall. That's a Ringo. That's the All-Star Band. He was playing in the All-Star Band, and so we keep close. We keep close.
Nice. Your albums feature mostly original material, but you've also done some really interesting covers. And one thing I love is that you put your own spin on all the songs, and you've done it right from the beginning with on the first album with Blues Power, the Eric Clapton song that was co-written by Leon Russell, and then on Bear in '79. You did just an incredibly striking rendition of one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs, Ruby Tuesday. It's an incredible rendition done as a duet.
Yeah.
Who's
Kathy Ingraham?
Yeah.
That was actually a huge regional hit in the Carolinas, in the Southeast. That was played almost 8 times a day on QDR. They broke that wide open. And she was a great singer. She sang in my band. She had such a sweet, velvety kind of like this velvet oil kind of voice, and it was so soulful. And what I like to do when I cover something is to do it, like you said, a little bit differently, and put my spin on it. And it went out really, really well. It's still one of my favorite songs.
It's one of mine too. You certainly put your own spin on your version of Werewolves of London from the Runner with that introduction. That's great. Because that was an unusual sort of approach for the beginning. How did that come about?
Werewolves?
Werewolves of London, yeah. The
I was in London, and I wanted to, and I was, I love the song, you know. Warren Zevon, I'm a huge Warren Zevon fan. He should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, folks. And so Warren, I mean, his songs, the Headless Thompson Gunner, I mean, all these great songs, Lawyers, Guns, and Money, And I'm in London, and I'm thinking, what would Warren do? Oh, let's do Werewolves of London, So I kind of laid that out there. I think the guitar player on that is a guy called Phil Cullen, not Collins,
right,
but Cullen, and he's the lead guitarist for Def Leppard.
Okay, that's where that name's familiar.
Yeah. So he played on it with me. Yeah.
And then, in addition to your own albums in the late '70s and through the '80s, you played on some other folks' records too, including the Crosby, Stills and Nash record "Daylight Again,"
right,
and then playing with in the Stephen Stills band.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up hooking up with those guys?
Well, I ended up hooking up with Stephen because we had a lot of friends in common, and every time he'd come through when I was living in New York or the area, I would hang out with Mike Finnegan. Mike Finnegan was a keyboard player in that band, and Mike would, bring me out to shows and this and that, and then all of a sudden, Stephen invited me out to sit in with them at a couple of the shows, and we became close. And then when I came out to California and I was working, had done a record with Gene Simmons, done his solo album, and then I did a couple of Cher albums. And I was out in California, and I started hanging out with Stephen, and I'd go up to his house, and we'd start writing together, and we'd go to the Improv together, and we loved comedy. And we had a night with Robin Williams at his house with Joe Walsh, and we were all pretty tanked at that moment. And Joe Walsh debuted his new song called "Tits, They Give Me Fits," and as he was doing it, Robin Williams, not to be outdone, was signing for the hearing impaired, you know. And I wish I would have had that moment on video. It was on. I think we took videos of it. We were going to do our own music video for MTV, but I don't know whatever happened to it.
So at the concert Friday, you played a song titled "Give It Up," co-written by Stephen Stills,
Right?
And it's on the Fresh Bear Tracks album,
Right.
But its origins are much farther back.
Yeah, the origins were I was out on tour with, we had a tour we called the Christmas Cash Tour, making some money up for Christmas to have Christmas cash. And it was like a November, December tour. And the tour ended in New Orleans, where we had played Tulane, I think, the night before. And then the band went back to L.A., and Stephen and I decided to stay in New Orleans. And we stayed there for about 4 or 5 days, his family being from the next state over, Alabama. They were there. And so we hung out, and we got into the New Orleans flavor, and he and I started writing because we had a keyboard, and we came up with this song called Who Dat? Who Dat?
Okay.
Which is like a New Orleans thing. Who Dat? You know? And then from that song, we went into Give It Up. And so we did a little demo of that, and I forgot about it. That's the honest to God's truth. It was gone, that's it. 30-something years later, 100 years later, I was in I have an office in a little hangar space over at Santa Monica Airport, and I was in there going through boxes and things to, when in doubt, throw it out, that kind of thing, trying to do spring cleaning. And at the time, I was doing Fresh Bear Tracks recording, so I was going through things to, to see if there's any songs that I might have missed or that I wanted to do again. And so I came across this shoebox, and I opened the shoebox, and it's got like, I don't know, a dozen cassettes in there. And most of the cassettes were actually outtakes from the Crosby, Stills, and Nash sessions.
Oh.
Those are all, things that didn't get on the album or things that because we used to run, a tape as we were recording. And so a lot of that stuff I had on there. And these were great things to keep because it was really interesting things on there. And then I came across this cassette in white that said, Who Dat? And this other white cassette that said, Give It Up. And I'm like, Who Dat is New Orleans, and Give It Up, I don't know what it is. And I didn't have a cassette player. So I went out and bought one. And the next day I came back and I plugged it in and threw Who Dat in there. And I went, oh, yeah. And then I threw Give It Up in there, and I went, holy shit, this is a good song. This is a really good song. It's funky. It's got a great hook. Let's cut this. So I cut it, and then I called Stills up and I said, I found a song that we wrote 30 years ago, and I need you to play guitar on it because you wrote it with me. We co-wrote it. And so we went up to his house, put the tracks down, and that was that. We were up at Fort Stills.
Did you? What happened with Who Dat then? Is there anything?
Who Dat's still on the cassette. I haven't figured out what to do with that one yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Fresh Bear Tracks was the first album after a kind of a long period where you hadn't released anything. I know you've talked about this elsewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to mention anything about what led you to sort of stop playing, and then what led you to start.
Well,
playing.
what led me to stop playing was I was married. And my wife at the time got pregnant with our first child, and that's my ex-wife, and she said, "Okay, it's time for you to kind of get a day job and put all this touring and all this nonsense behind you." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm a musician too." And she said, "Yeah, but we're raising a family," and she was a force of nature, And I said, "Okay," So I stopped kind of doing that. She said, you want to play in a little music room, go play in a music room, but no more touring, no more gigs, no more this, no more that. And then many years later, after we had 3 kids and they were kind of grown, our relationship fell apart, and I couldn't, be married to this woman anymore. And we broke up, and I moved, just down the street so I could be there for the kids. And I had met a woman who knew of me through her ex-boyfriend who played guitar in my band 20-something years earlier. And she said, I know who you are. I know what you've done. Why aren't you doing anything else? Well, we ended up seeing each other. I ended up moving in with her. And this is the place. And long story short, she nagged me until I started putting a band together and writing songs. So I would sit literally at a piano right there, and on the other side of the piano was her desk. And she was an editor, a book editor, and she also was a tutor for UCLA students. And so she would be there, and she also went back to school to get a degree in Scandinavian literature. So she would do her homework over there, or tutor or whatever, or do papers, and I would sit at the piano, and I would, write songs, and she would go, "Oh, that's a good hook. That's a good," she knew music. And anyway, long story short, I put a band together, great band, live band, had a blast called T-Bear and Route 66, and we played the Write-Off Room, the original one, and we had a residency every Tuesday night. And we play there, and I would pick little places that were kind of quirky, So that was one place, and the Moose Lodge was another place in Santa Monica, in actual Moose Lodge,
Yeah.
So, and it looked like, the Moose Lodge in Santa Monica looked like a set from The Deer Hunter, from the bar in The Deer Hunter, way back then. So I played these places, and we had a great time, and then I started, writing songs, and it was time to make a record. I had done a session at Robbie Krieger's studio called Horse Latitudes in Glendale, and Robbie was there that day, and he says, "Richard, what have you been doing, man? Where have you been? What's going on with you?" And I said, "Well, I took a little hiatus." He says, "It wasn't so little," and he said, "How about making a record? How about coming in here and recording?" I said, "Hey, Robbie, I don't have the funds. I'm not signed to a label." And he turned around and looked at me straight in the eye, and he said, "Tell you what, this is a private studio, and you're invited to record here, and if you pay the engineer, I'll give you the studio."
Nice.
So I went and recorded Fresh Bear tracks there, and everybody that I called, or that Tony Bronigal, who produced it, they showed up in droves. I mean, it didn't matter. The money didn't matter. It was having a really good fun time making a good record. That's what mattered. So Stephen Stills, Edgar Winter, Robbie Krieger, the guys from the E Street Horns, some of the guys from Tom Petty's band, the Heartbreakers, a couple of the guys that played on Steely Dan's records, some of the, let's see, the Wrecking Crew, some of the folks from the Wrecking Crew played on it, Chuck Berghofer, the bass player from, These Boots Are Made for Walking, and a bunch of those hits. So everybody showed up.
I mean, this is what I was saying before. You seem to draw the greatest people around you.
Yeah.
Now, that was the first record that was released under the name T-Bear rather than Richard T-Bear. Why did you draw?
I got that name T-Bear because I was sitting with a publicist, and she's Ringo's publicist, and we became friends, and we had a meal together, and she said, "Are you going to make another record, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I'm thinking of dropping the name Richard T-Bear and just using T-Bear." And she says, "That's a really good idea because it's kind of a hip little name, and when you look at stuff today on the internet and everything, the picture is so small of the album cover. The name would be really, really small if it was Richard T. Bear. So a T. Bear is like a little bigger and
Yeah.
stands out a little better, and it's more modern.
So this might be the time to ask. I had read somewhere that the bear, which you've been using as long as you've been playing, that nickname came about because you were wearing a giant fur coat. Is that?
I had this kind of gorilla kind of bear kind of monsoon coat on, and what happened was I got signed to RCA, and they said, you're going to lose the name Gerstein. We're not going to sign Richard Gerstein, which is my legal name. And I said, well, why not? And they said, because Jews don't sell in the South. And I went, well, what about Springsteen? They said, he's not Jewish. And I said, well, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. They said, have you got a nickname? I said, the only nickname I have is sometimes they said, well, here comes the bear. And they said, okay, you're going to be Richard the Bear. And I said, well, there's an Edward Bear in Canada, and I don't want to be Richard the Bear. I said, well, how about Richard T. Bear? And they said, okay, what's the T stand for? I said, trustworthy. Let's sign the deal. I need the check.
So the new album, The Way of the World, outstanding album. But I wanted to, sure thing. But I wanted to get your thoughts on just at least a couple of the specific tracks.
Sure.
One of my favorites, the first one is the title track, The Way of the World. It's just a great vibe and sort of a reaction to the craziness of our times.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to get your thoughts on where that one came from. And
well, I was having a Bob Dylan week, and I was playing Blood on the Tracks and everything else that I could possibly, my late wife Nina, who passed away, that got me to do that record and brought me back into the business, had hundreds of cassettes and vinyl. And she had a tremendous collection, and she had 15, 20 Dylan albums, and I'd be coming home and I'd hear, oh, it's going to be a Dylan night, and after she passed away, I still kind of wanted to have Dylan nights. So I was listening to Dylan, and I was thinking to myself, it's COVID, there's this political upheaval, there's all this stuff going on, they're invading countries. I mean, people are, wearing masks in your apartment building, all this stuff. And there's a lot of craziness out there. So what would Dylan write right now? So I sat down and I started writing, because I write the lyrics first mostly. And I started writing all of my pet peeves of things, and that's how I came up with The Way of the World, because that's exactly the way Bob would want it.
it's interesting to me because the Bob Dylan song that I hear just a little bit of when I listen to that song is Things Have Changed, a little of that. What's interesting to me is that a good deal of your song is that things haven't changed.
No, they have not changed. Salesmen are always closing.
Yeah.
There's lines in there. Politicians are always grinning.
Right.
Yeah. I'll go as long as you want. We're cool.
Okay. Well, there's just a couple other songs I definitely want to mention. Another highlight for me, which is Before the Fall. Teresa James does some really nice backing vocal work on that.
Yeah,
one.
she's great. She's an amazing singer. I love Teresa James. And you folks, if you don't know who she is our other, in an alternate universe, our other Bonnie Raitt. So try to check her out. Yeah, and so Before the Fall, everything on The Way of the World is an homage to something. Before the Fall is an homage to Mozart and Brian Wilson. And I was watching a little bit of Amy Winehouse, and I thought I'd sprinkle a little chord or two that Amy might have used. So that's Before the Fall.
Another standout for me was A Change Will Do Me Good. And partly just that title. I feel like it's
Yeah,
everyone's going to relate to
well,
that. But also,
you're sitting in my Barker lounger for the COVID year. You know,
yeah.
I'm lounging in the Barker 5 days a week. My lows are multiplying and my groove has sprung a leak. You know, a change would do me good. And I want it. Well, okay, we got the lyrics now. Now what's the beat? And I went, nobody's done a Bo Diddley in a long time. Let's do Bo Diddley.
And the Bo Diddley beat just always works for me. It just always.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Bo Diddley.
I mean, not to go back to the Grateful Dead or anything, but they would use that beat on several songs, and it would always get the crowd dancing and just thrilled. But the song that I love the most on the album is "Breathe." That's my personal favorite, and I know I'm not alone in this. I I overheard at the show Lori say, "Oh, this is your most requested song." As you, I don't know if you heard her say that, but as you were starting it, it's a gorgeous and moving song. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about why you think that song has such great appeal and why it speaks to people so strongly.
It's so obviously authentic. It's so obviously without pretense. It's just so raw and real. I mean, there's so much honesty in that song, and you know, it speaks to me. I wrote it in under 10 minutes. It was one of the easiest songs that ever came to me, and I just thought to myself as I looked out the window, you know, we're up on the third floor, so I can almost see the sea and there was this really kind of dark amber rust kind of sunset going on, and the sky was turning to rust is what I thought. And then the other thing is, in my life I've always had these notions that I had some sort of psychic kind of things going on. I would think of something and it would happen, or I would. And the other line that gets to me, and I think it got to you, was wishing my crystal ball would turn to stone. You know, I left my crystal ball at home, wishing it would turn to stone, because I don't want to see what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, I want to live in the now, and because I'm safe in the now, I'm not safe in tomorrow. And so, people tell me that that song is therapy, and I had a therapist actually call me and say it's not therapy, it's barapy. And well, we did a video of that. It's going to be the next release, this coming week or next week, for the album.
I mean, I think any therapy or any healing should involve music in some way.
Absolutely.
And so, going back to COVID and everything, you used the time productively. Wrote how many songs do you figure?
Oh man, I wrote well over 100 songs during COVID.
And so you're working on a new album.
I have a new album I'm working on called The Book of Secrets, where every song is a chapter. And you know, we're going to take Jerry Salinger, the guy that wrote Catcher in the Rye. He's one of the chapters. Anthony Bourdain is another chapter. The guy that stole an airplane and committed suicide in the Northwest, Bebo, he's a chapter. Got a lot of stuff in there. Vin Scully is a chapter. It's coming along really nicely.
That's great. And you've done a little bit of this before, because on Fresh Bear Trucks you had Cab Calloway.
Right.
And then Dear John.
Right.
Which is sort of an homage to John
Prine. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful song.
Yeah.
Speaking of songs, are you going to play a song for us?
Yeah,
then?
I think I'll play a song for you, and I think it'll be "Breathe."
Oh, I would love it.
I would like to play "Breathe" for you.
Fantastic. All right, we'll get that set up, and we'll play that in just a moment.
Okay. When you're wondering who to call and nighttime starts to fall, the sky turns to rust and you're wondering who to trust, just breathe. Just breathe. So choose your seat with the clearest view. Make a choice as the last call chimes. You found a place to land, so I guess you'll do just fine. And breathe. Just breathe. Scour the area for clues, all the news that fits with print, whether it's red hot blue or lime. I guess I'm just marking time. I left my crystal ball at home, wishing it would turn to stone. It's never front page news with holes in your shoes. It's midnight, it's another day, and just like that I'll drift away with nothing left up your sleeve. All you can do is breathe, so breathe. Just breathe. I left my crystal ball at home, wishing it would turn to stone. It's never front page news when you got holes in your shoes. There's not enough fingers to plug the hole, life rushing in every side. You're caught in life's landslide, and you've tried and tried and cried. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe.
That is so beautiful. Like, it just gets me every time. So thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
It's really nice to be here. Thank you so much for being a part of my world, and I hope we can do it again one day.
I would love to, because there's a lot we did not get to.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.